What's up, vinyl community? What's going on? It's Tone. And hey, Steve, how are you, buddy? This one's for you. Steve's 1,000 subscriber contest, show 5 go-to records. First, really quickly, I almost didn't get to do this because I've mentioned so many times before in other videos that I don't have time to do a lot of videos, and when it comes to doing videos, I've got to get my own out first before I do contest videos, and that's sometimes a challenge. So I figured this time, you know what, I've already missed, a couple of people who I respect highly, contest video, like Greg from the Vinyl Rundown. I mean, he's in my backyard. We're both here in LA, and I missed his. So I feel bad, but I will do the next one, Greg, I promise. And there's other people that I just adore who are, I consider friends, even if we've never met. And I miss contest videos. So Steve is just a massive support. And so I figured I had to try to do this one. And the only way I could do it was, couldn't do it before I left the house, couldn't do it late night. So what was I gonna do? I brought it to work with me. And here I am. Here's where I'm working this week, maybe longer. I'm here in the B Lounge at Larrabee North Studios here in Los Angeles, where I've been working the past few days and will be continuing to work. So I figured I'd take a break. I'd lock the main door to the lounge. I'd open the side door to get some air, and I'm gonna do it right here. So no one should bother me because no one is allowed in the lounge, and I'm the only one in the B studio. So here we go. Okay, what is a go-to record? First, a go-to record is something that you choose to listen to when you are in need or in desire of wanting to fulfill or gratify a musical, you want to gratify yourself musically. And it's something that you don't have to think about, number one, grabbing, you don't have to think about deciphering and picking apart in order to enjoy while you listen. Example, most of my jazz records, even though I am a musician, are calculated listens. They're intellectual listens. In order to really, really absorb pleasure from them, they take some thought. They take paying attention to, in order to really get from them what you would want to get from them. The same thing with most classical recordings, most of them. Go-to records are by far not records that are not intellectually derived, and they're not just cheap records or dumb productions that don't have any thought, that where the production is crap or really easy or simple, and the songwriting is really cliche. It's not that whatsoever, because most of the go-to records that I have, which are, God, in excess of 20, it was really hard to actually choose. I just kind of picked the first ones I saw. Go-to records are something, they can be very intellectual, very complex, very well produced and well thought out. But there's something that resonates with your monkey bone in regards to these records, in regards to the music on these records. Monkey bone, sorry. If you don't know what a monkey bone is, Google it. What is a monkey bone in regards to music? It's an actual medical term. It's an actual musical term. It is something that is in your nerve ending structure, in your spine to your skull, that resonates with certain chord progressions and certain note structures effortlessly, that brings you euphoria. So when I go to a go-to record, it's because I'm looking to gratify myself musically, but it's something that I'm going to listen to when I'm doing something else, and I don't need to think about what is going on musically in order to derive all the pleasure I can from that record. I hope that made sense. Okay, so without any further ado, let's just show what I brought, get through this really quick. The first one is, this is the largest selling record of all time. I've shown it before, I've talked about it before briefly. And this record, it's the largest selling record of all time for a reason. It is probably the epitome of why pop records are called pop records. It's just that good. There's absolutely no denying this record. And did I grab the wrong one? I did. I'm sorry. It's just a fantastic recording, and that is Mr. Jackson's Thriller. From the overall album production to the individualistic song production to the arrangements to the songwriting to the track listing in the way that it's laid out to the vocals. Michael Jackson was an absolute unreal vocalist with a range that I am about 1/2 of an octave short of matching. He had a 5-octave range, which is unheard of for a male singer. I'm at a 4.5 octave range, which is actually uncommon for a male singer. But this guy's voice from a child, especially to an adult, is just undeniable. It's an undeniable record. I don't care what genres of music you don't like, what genres of music you only listen to, what artists you do and don't like. If you don't like this artist, it doesn't matter. You cannot deny the brilliance of this record in the full scope of what this record represents. So much is that I love this thing so fantastically. Original Japanese issue, first pressing, original US issue, first pressing. And I have other versions of this record, not only on vinyl, but on several versions on CD and cassette, audio cassette. So that's number one, undeniable. Number two, when I'm looking at listening to a musician from this particular era, a pop musician that really just fills me up and makes me feel like I can relate all the way through. One of the most amazing songwriting teams of all time. He's 1/4 of one of the biggest, if not the biggest, rock band of all time. And I'm talking about Mr. Paul McCartney, who happens to be personally my favorite Beatle. When I want to listen to Paul, when I want to listen to something from this era, I automatically gravitate to this record, Band on the Run. Just like Thriller, it is so fantastically produced and written. It's unbelievable. Even if I just listened to Band on the Run and Jet all day long, I would still be satisfied. It's just a fantastic record. I don't know what the heck's going on outside. Sounds like a trash truck in the alley. Anyway, so much so that, first US issue, first pressing. This is the MPL remaster, and it is absolutely phenomenal record. That's number two. You guys, excuse me 1 sec. I'm going to shut the side doors so I don't have to hear that truck. Okay, hold on 1 sec. Okay, I'm back. Magic. So number three is an absolutely phenomenal album. Number three is the only live album out of all the 5 that I'm showing. It is actually in my top 3 live albums of all time. It is not my number 1 favorite live album of all time, but it is in the top 3, and it is phenomenal. 1997's Erykah Badu Live. And Erykah Badu Live, it's just undeniable. From the second this thing starts till it ends, you just don't want this thing to end. It's unreal. Talked about it in a video before where I went into an expository explanation of this entire thing. I won't do that here, but what I will say is it's absolutely brilliantly done, from the engineering to the production to Erykah Badu and her background singers are in absolute rare form. It is just brilliant. It was released to coincide with her debut record, and it was actually released before the debut studio record, but it was not promoted or marketed. It was marketed after they released the studio version, which came out a few months after. If you remember the live version of the song Tyrone, this is where it came from. Then what they did is release the studio version of Tyrone later, which is not even nearly as good. But this entire album is so well done. I promise you, I've said it before, if you pick up this record, it will instantly become one of your favorite live albums ever. And if you don't like live albums, give this a listen, and I promise you will change your mind about live records. Erykah Badu Live, 1997, on Kedar Universal. This next one is one of two bands that launched a genre of music that would go on to define intelligent rock outside of progressive rock. It brought in soul, it brought in jazz. It's what we affectionately refer to as jazz rock, and it is one of the two US bands that really kickstarted that subgenre of absolute delectable music. And this record is 1969's Chicago Transit Authority, self-titled. Front, back, front, back, front. This is a very intelligent listen, but for some reason, I can put this thing on and not even think about it and pull so much pleasure from this record that I go to it all the time. And I think part of going to a go-to record might have some part to do with nostalgia. Nostalgia has a lot to do with why we listen to music as well. And so I think nostalgia is a big part of, a lot of the records I listen to. It's not the main reason, but I grew up listening to this as a kid. When I was a little kid in the 80s, my dad would play it, my uncles would play it. The same thing with the Band on the Run album. It's just fantastic. It brings me to a place that I really enjoy revisiting in my heart and my mind. And 1969 on Columbia Records, Chicago Transit Authority, who would later be, after this record, come to be known as just Chicago. Why? For those of you who don't know, it's because they were sued by the city of Chicago for using the name Chicago Transit Authority, which is the name of the transit authority, which houses the train system and the bus system, etc., in Chicago. And so after this record, they were known just as Chicago. Okay. Number 5, last but not least, this is a band that I don't think gets enough accolades. They're not credited with enough in regards to what they contributed to a sound that is absolutely brilliant, that has been come to known as East Bay Funk. A lot of bands came out of this movement and out of the San Francisco movement with this type of music, but these guys really laid the foundation. That is the band Tower of Power. This is 1975, 76 or 75? 1976 on Columbia. This is after they left Warner Brothers, and this is after Mr. Lenny Williams, who did all of the lead vocals up until this point, left the band, the album before this, and they hired a lead singer by the name of Edward McGee, whose vocals are, I'm not taking away anything from Lenny Williams. I love Lenny Williams in Tower of Power, and I even have all of his solo stuff. But Edward McGee brought something to Tower of Power that resonated with the horn sections, in my personal opinion, more than Lenny Williams' voice did. His range is unreal. And the album production, the song production, the musicianship, the songwriting, and the vocals, including the very famous background vocals that Tower of Power is known for. Boy, is this just a fantastic record. Tower of Power, Ain't Nothing Stopping Us Now, 1976 on Columbia Records. If you've not heard this record, I recommend picking it up. Seriously, very seriously. No, all joking aside, all kidding aside, all lightheartedness aside, very seriously, this record is absolutely amazing funk, soul, jazz record. and I would highly recommend picking it up. 1976, Tower of Power, Ain't Nothing Stopping Us Now. And that is it. Thanks for your time. I'm glad I was able to get through this rather quickly. I've got to get back to work, and you guys got to get back to watching other people's submissions. So, thanks, Steve, for the opportunity. Put my name in the hat, and let's see what's going to happen. Good luck to everybody else. And all I got to say is, Wu-Tang!